Hello. Last year, I promised a video about bees eating salt. I just managed to trim the video material and publish some of the results. Now it started raining. I have some time to record part of the video. Salt consumption was a rather lengthy study. More than a year of material was cut together. My experiments were preceded by asking other beekeepers what they knew about bee salt consumption, but no one could say anything concrete on the merits. Therefore, I was forced to begin to explore this subject. Some said it was necessary in one part of the country, and not necessary in another. Some said that he gave them, but he saw neither benefit nor evil. I have spoken to many people on this subject. Neither in books nor elsewhere was it specifically mentioned what happens when we give and what happens when we don't. I have not heard information about this either on the internet or anywhere else. I myself could not find it. But why did it occur to me to think about this? Research? I used to eat tomatoes on the bees' colonies, and they were salted, and what fell off was salty. Tomatoes, they began to be surprised by bees after a while. But it was even more interesting when they were different. I went out to the bees and saw that where the salted tomatoes fell, there. The bees also scraped the ground, pushing it, biting each other, against each other to see who owned that little one. Salty tomatoes. They literally fought for him in the ground. And it was at this point that I said to myself, this was too strange. How do I know if they need this salt? If so, exactly where? Why is what is in nectar not enough? Why is what nature gives them not enough? What influences them that they are very much in demand during certain periods, and what is it when they do not need it? So why don't they need it anymore? Does it affect them for good or bad? If I give, how long should I give? Because in some periods, they are very, and in others, they don't care at all about whether there is salt in the water. That's what made me want to find out, because there are too many questions. In the continuation of the video, you will also see the evidence of how I found out the solution. What and how did I find out? This will be answered further. You can see the bees screaming at the salt in carrying honey. In unworn weather, spring, summer, autumn. However, it is not harmless for bees to give too much or too much salt, as it has a drying effect. That's why it became a concentration applied, experimenting with what is right for them. I figured out how to put salt water in a bucket next to the other drinking buckets. Then you will see them from the middle of my video. 70 liters of water in one place, 100 liters of water in another, and I added another 20 liters to the 100 liters. It is necessary to know about bees that they are loyal to the place of the drinker. Where they went, they will continue to go after that, and they will have a hard time getting used to it. Move to another place if they don't see the point, and otherwise enough water from the usual drinker. They can drink. I always have 170 liters of water in front of the bees. There is never a shortage of water. And in such cases, when the bees have enough water, it is difficult for them to switch to other drinkers. or very soon. They are loyal to the usual things, drinkers. When I added 20 liters of water to the 100-liter unit, which was salty, the bees took a little time. After that, they covered him and began to bite each other for it. I saw that bees strongly need it. I thought, if they get 1 in 2 buckets, that's how much they need. Then what if I put them in every drinker, all 170 liters? What happened was that the bees disappeared from the said 2 buckets of salt water, and the quantity of bees was distributed over the other 170 liters. Each bucket of water was visited equally from then on, but the 2 buckets of water were left where they were originally. The salty one. Then I also thought that it wasn't because bees like to visit. Drinking in livestock farms, even though there is a lot of water in front of the bees, they do not drink there, but go away. And on livestock farms, they begin to drink from the animals' drinkers. After all, when animals drink, they have feed residue from their mouths and beaks. It dissolves back into their drinker and the feed becomes salty as their drinking water. Because, as we know, feeds are large. Contain a percentage of salt. In many cases, livestock farms complain that bees go there. The beekeeper himself gives the bees water in vain. He sits in front of them, but they do not consume it as much as they find in the colonies. Even though there are millions of liters of water in front of the bees, they still prefer to go to the livestock farm to drink. Then, I thought it might be an obsessive search for the salt inside and what bees do for it. The rest of my video. If you look at it, you will see what evidence there is for this, that this is most likely the case. That is why I have increasingly seen research and experimentation with this salt water. The name of this channel itself suggests that research and experimentation are always going on here. There is always something that catches my attention. And I'm going to start doing more experiments on that particular thing. I also noticed that bees do not always look for salt. Sometimes they are very obsessive, sometimes less, sometimes. They make absolutely no distinction between salt water and plain water. There were times when I put the salt water drinker next to the plain water and nothing happened at all. They went on it in exactly the same way, or didn't drink it even as much as they did on plain water. And I also realized that it is not dependent on the country part, because I have several settlement locations, and not or only to a small extent. Depends on the country part. However, it may depend when other flowers open on one site or another. There may be minor differences, but the difference is not significant. I went into salt as research, but in the meantime I realized that there was so much more to it. And it's not just the salt itself that's important. Therefore, experiments continue and continue to be carried out. Because there are already discoveries that are amazing to me, and they are no longer just salt itself, but things related to that. I keep you informed about this in my videos. I will always have one video a year about the results of 1 year as I did. So far, the more I get into this topic, I notice that it is expanding and expanding as I discover. Amazing things are and will be. I can already see that. I've been able to anticipate other substances in the water. For example, nitrogen, enzymes, etc. They are so important, although we have more knowledge about them, and I also read them from books at first, but other things are how to make bee water alive and health promoting for them. Next year, this will be the topic of my video on how to achieve this. What are the relationships between drinking water quality and bee physiology? Which will be a very important thing. At first I thought the lack of salt was related to nectar, because when the nectar started to come a little better to the hives, then they took the salt water a little less, but I saw that this was only a little so. The decipherment is incomplete. Then I linked pollen to salt consumption to make sure it was the bride. The influence on salt consumption, but this was not entirely true either, only partially. Then I started to wonder how the amount of open brood could be that determines how much salt the bees need. Because when there are a lot of open broods, surely they need more salt, but this was not entirely true either, but it is also an influencing factor. Today, 99% of people know what influences them. I will have a video about this next year. Why do you need salt? And why they need it when they need it? And how long they need it? How much concentration they need. Watch the video to see how bees behave.
Biztos a nyílt fiasításnak a mennyiségével függ össze, hogy minél több benne a nyílt fiasítás és annak a neveléséig. Ez sem volt teljesen igaz. Aztán kezdtem így gondolkozni, most 99%-ra megvan bennem, hogy tulajdonképpen mi is az összefüggés az összes történetben. Ez majd egy következő, talán az őszi videómban benne lesz, ugyanígy a sós vízről lesz majd szó, hogy miképpen és miért van szüksége pont akkor a sóra a méheknek, amikor. De mit tesz?
This is what drinkers look like. There is another place where water for them is 70 liters, and here we have 100 liters. Since yesterday, they have been drinking from this 100 liters, but not so much, because there is brood of bees, but there is a lot of water exposed, so each bucket sold small. However, I have a drinker that I filled completely yesterday. Look at that. They attack each other almost for this water I put out yesterday. Look at this drinker and the other drinkers. I also put a little salt in this one drinker.
Nézzétek meg azt az adatot, meg ezt az adatot. Ez ide lesz rakva legeslegszél, látjuk már a nagy fűbe bele lesz rakva. Látszik, hogy körbe ez a nagy fű. Ezt nézzétek meg az utolsó cseppig, ez színűtig volt tegnap töltve, azt gondoljátok el. Teljesen színűtig volt töltve, nincs benne egy gram sem, és egymást támadják, egymást bántják, a méhek ezért a vízért.
Wild tobacco is growing nicely. Shejam grass, who calls it what? There is a good carry about it. Bees love it very much. There are plenty of them here in front of the hives as well. It opens, but from here it is many kilometers over the whole area. But back to salt water. I'm just telling you this so you can see that quite a long time has passed since the previous installment, because the video has been cut from many parts, so that you can follow things chronologically. I said this because they carry nectar and bees don't really drink water anymore. My country. When they carry nectar, they never carry water, or very little, depending on whether the nectar weasel dry. What is its water content? The humidity of the air. You see, bees don't even drink water. Water has been here for a long time, and they don't even bother with it. The float has been thrown out of the drinkers for a long time. You can already see that they are dry. 1-on-1. Styrofoam remained in the drinker only so that if a couple still wants to drink, they should not be harmed. However, these 2 buckets of water that I put out next to the other 100 liters have a lot of bees on them. Despite the fact that there is a large nectar carry, and the plain water itself is not drunk by bees. In these 2 buckets I put a little salt. This shows me that despite carrying nectar, bees also need salt, but not water per se. These 2 buckets of water are filled every day for days, and consumed in 24 hours. And not how do they need salt, but as you can see, the bees fight over the salt, because here are only these 2 buckets where they can get salt, and therefore they bite each other, fight.
Ezek nedvesek voltak, mint az. De azt is ki fogom szállítani, hogy ne legyen olyan rossz kinézetű. De ugye sós vízre visszatérve, akármilyen hordás is van, akármilyen oldal fiasit is, mert amúgy fiasít elég jól a méncsalád, de akármilyen a hordás, akármilyen mennyire van nektár, mégiscsak a só miatt, ez ugyanaz a víz egyébként nem rásik, tehát az a víz, meg az a víz, tök ugyanaz. Annyi a különbség, hogy van benne egy kis só. És ha ők azt mondják, hogy van egy csomó nektár, azt mondják, hogy hordanak, azt mondják, hogy nekik nem kell a víz, de mégiscsak kell nekik a só. Nem, hogy kell nekik a só, itt is már, mint a múltkor meg szoktam figyelni, verekednek a sós víz miatt. De látják, hogy kevés a sós víz, és verekednek érte. Ott verekednek. De amúgy ezt szokták csinálni, főleg itt és ott is tépik egymást. Látják, hogy ürül kifele és nincs benne sós víz, ott tépik egymást, hogy kié legyen a sós víz. Holott ide is rárepülhetnének, ha víz kellene nekik. Csak egy kis érdekesség menet közben.
Now wild tobacco and sejam grass have gone down. We can see what has changed compared to the previous ones. I forgot about the 2 buckets I used to fill with salt water, because in the meantime I also migrated to sunflowers. But even that, and wild tobacco has flourished. Since there is no nectar carrying, they have started drinking plain water as well, unfortunately the 2 salt buckets. I forgot about that, but it seems that they already drink plain water. Since then, I have had to fill the 2 extreme buckets with water several times. While these other 100 liters have just started drinking, I haven't had to stop filling them. I just forgot. Upload unfortunately, because of all my work.
Ott már nincs benne egyáltalán, teljesen száraz. Már nincs egyáltalán semmi víz. Ezt itták meg legelőször. Ugye nekem a méhem egy része napraforgón van már, ugye most minden egyszerre virágzik. Nem volt időm feltölteni vízzel a vödröt. Elfelejkeztem róla, hát ezt kiitták teljesen üresre, de már többször kiitták úgy, hogy ahhoz hozzá se nyúltak. Láthattátok az előbb. Most vaddohány lement. Vaddohány már itt nincs, itt is van, mutattam nemrég. Volt virágja, már ugye nincs virágra, vaddohánynak egyáltalán. Napraforgóról lassan jöhetek elő. Elfelejkeztem el a 2 vödörről, ezt többször is teletöltöttem, és akkor elvitták a vizet a sótól, abból a vízből egyáltalán nem fogyott semennyi se. Semennyi, egy dekas.
De jönni fog ősszel a videóm.
This experiment was interesting and instructive for me. And I realized much bigger and more cumulative things.
mindennel, mint én azt
Then
gondolom.
I thought so. But I'll have a video about that next year. If the bees are so demanding of it, they behave so violently for it that they get salt. I think it is worth dealing with this as well. And this topic requires no little attention. But the connections are much bigger than I thought. And there are more and more interesting things while doing this. I am dissecting the subject. Thanks for watching my video.
Mert ha a méhek ennyire szeretik, és ennyire úgy érzik, hogy nekik szükségük van rá, ez a nagyon erős ökológia van, hogy egymást marják, akkor azért ott nem kevés figyelmet igényelnek szerintem ez a téma. De sokkal nagyobbak az összefüggők, mint mondom. Ahogy ebbe a show témába belekezdtem, egyre nagyobb ennek a köre, egyre több bele lehet látni, és egyre érdekesebb dolgok vannak. Hogyha szeretnél értesülni ezekről a dolgokról, és az új videókról, és nem akarsz majd lemaradni, akkor mindenképpen ajánlom, iratkozzatok fel. Sziasztok!